regards to the 50 people who showed up outside my office door yesterday. I want to point out to you something that may not be obvious to you if you haven't been here before to an event like this. There are very few events like this, but sometimes people come here and they hold rallies on the steps, or they should say they hold rallies down here where Kirby and I are standing, and also someone you really need to meet, my beautiful wife, McKenna, right here. To do what I do without Marilyn and my family. And I know you all understand the importance of having family around you. But, usually when there's an event here, the people are all staying down here, and the legislators are up there speaking from the steps. I like it this way a lot better. You know why? Because these are your steps. This is your building. This is your This is set up today because your backs are to the Capitol at the moment, and you're facing my favorite building on the Capitol campus, the Temple of Justice. It's called the Temple of Justice for a reason. It's because our nation is a nation of laws, of the rule of law. And the foundational document in this system of rule of law is our federal Constitution and then our state Constitution. The Constitution means something. The words in the Constitution matter. It isn't something you just look at selectively when it's to your convenience. It matters all the time. Some have suggested that our argument before the federal courts that the individual health insurance mandate violates the 10th Amendment is some sort of antique. That the 10th Amendment hasn't been addressed by the Supreme Court in a long time, and there's been a steady expansion of federal power on and on and on, and just give it up, they say. I want to point out to those people who think the 10th Amendment has no meaning because there hasn't been a Supreme Court case on it in a long time, that there had not been a Supreme Court case upholding our rights under the Second Amendment, our rights to keep and bear arms, and since 1937. But just recently, the United States Supreme Court had no trouble whatsoever saying that the Second Amendment is real and our right to keep and bear arms is real, and they upheld that right. About the Second Amendment or the 10th Amendment is to address this idea of states' rights, and states' rights are real. So what I want to point out to you is that the 10th Amendment is about states' rights, but this case is about the other part of the 10th Amendment that the other side of this debate doesn't want to hear about, because the Amendment 10 says that the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution or prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Let me be the first to say that we are not bringing this case to defend the state's rights to impose an individual insurance mandate on us. We're bringing this case to defend your rights from having it imposed upon you. That's what this is about. The opposition is already throwing up as many arguments as they can. They've trotted out their legal scholars from Harvard and elsewhere. And that really makes me smile when they do that. Right? Like the guy from Harvard Law School isn't going to say that they can do this? Come on. But they bring out these arguments like the fact that this fine that they're going to impose on us if we choose not to get into commerce and buy the insurance, they're calling it a, quote, tax penalty. Now, why do they do that? Because the IRS is so popular? No. They did it because they're trying desperately to make the health mandate look like a tax. Because they're going to argue in the federal courts that the health mandate is available to the Congress under the tax and spending clause of the Constitution. Kirby's already addressed that, but the fact is, this is not a tax. We know the difference. We pay taxes to the government provides something to us, whether we want it or not. But this is not a tax. This is the first time in American history that they are forcing us into the stream of commerce. And this idea that the Commerce Clause gives them the power, how does the Commerce Clause give the Congress the power to impose this mandate when it is directed at people who are refraining from commerce? It doesn't make any sense. Are they next going to tell us that we all have to buy GM because we all own GM now? There is no principal distinction between that kind of idea and the idea of the insurance mandate. None. They have not articulated a principal distinction between ordering us to enter commerce when we would like to stay out and ordering us from doing anything else they happen to come up with that they can find a majority in Congress for. The reason we have a Constitution is to protect us from the majorities of Congress. So it doesn't work under the Commerce Clause, it doesn't work under the Tax and Spending Clause. If they don't have the power, then we refer to Amendment 10, which says, hey, if we haven't given you the power, you don't have it, right? It's the people, right? And we know how the federal government can obtain expanded powers. Unfortunately, we're painfully aware of it right now as we prepare our income taxes. The federal government didn't have the power to tax our income until the United States Constitution was amended by 2/3 of the Congress and 3/4 of the state legislatures, and then they had the power. If they want the power, bring the message out, bring the question out to the people, to the state legislators, and have the supermajorities. That's the way it works. Legal arguments here. You know, this isn't just about being forced to go into the stream of commerce and buy something. We're going to be forced to go out and buy what they tell us to buy. Right? That's what it's about. That's what they're going to order us to do. This will be the largest wealth transfer in our lifetimes from people who choose to stay out or only choose to buy, a basic level of coverage, and then everyone else they're going to be subsidizing through this transfer. Young people in this country ought to be very, very concerned about this because it is largely targeted at the majority of people who don't have health insurance who happen to be under the age of 34. That's what they should be concerned about. So let's remember that. And let's finally remember this, that the governor and her friends keep telling the public in all the letters they send to me and all the messages they deliver to the public that this is about the benefits that you're all going to receive. Once again, they're trying to tell us it's all about the benefits, it's all free, somebody else is going to pay for it. We know exactly who's going to pay for it, don't we? So let's get our message out there about that as well. There are legitimate and heartfelt and serious questions being raised about this massive entitlement expansion, the huge cost that it's going to impose on our children and our grandchildren, the trillion-dollar deficits as far as the eye can see. These are real concerns and real issues. And those issues will be addressed through the legislative process. Because when the majority of Congress changes this fall, majority shifts, then the legislative process will be used to make changes to this massive program which they have launched. In the meantime, we will use all the resources at our disposal, whether they try to take them away from my office or not. We will do the right thing. We will vindicate your rights as individuals. I will uphold my responsibilities as the Attorney General to defend the constitutions of this country and this state, and we will win this case in the courts.